Welcome back to another episode of Marketing Girly by Sky Society. Today I'm chatting with Sydney Blake Thomas, the Director of Brand Marketing at BÉIS. Welcome, Sydney.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to meet you in person finally.
Yes, it's so fun. This is actually my very first time doing an in-person episode of Marketing Girly, and Sydney is the one that inspired me to want to do this. So
I'm so honored.
You are the first and hopefully the first of very many.
Yes.
So I'm really excited to jump into your career journey, especially because one of the big pillars for Marketing Girly podcast is sharing non-traditional and non-linear career journeys, which I know you've got.
Absolutely.
A pretty crazy one. So I'm excited to jump into all of that. But before we do, can you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, definitely. Well, I'm Sydney. I am originally from the Midwest. Very proud of that. It's always my first fact. But I've lived in LA for the last 7 years, and I am now the Director of Brand Marketing at BÉIS. I hope you're familiar with BÉIS, but if you're not, we're a luggage and travel brand, and we were founded by actress and entrepreneur Shay Mitchell. I've been with the company for almost 3 years. My anniversary is around the corner, and I primarily lead our partnerships, activations, consumer strategy, all the things, all the really fun things, our collaborations, and so, yeah, it's the best.
Can you tell me a little bit about brand marketing in general? Because I know a lot of women say oh, I would love to work in brand marketing, but I know it varies from company to company.
Yeah.
But what does that encompass when you say I lead brand?
Yes. Okay. So it's very complicated, and I will say nothing is a solo job, right? So yes, my title is brand marketing. I am the director on our team. I have an amazing boss. Her name is Liz Money. She's our senior vice president of brand and creative. So really, brand is led by the two of us, and I would say our creative director. And it means a million different things. For us, it's how the brand feels everywhere you go, every touch point, right? When the consumer interacts with our brand, whether that's with the product once in the airport with a stranger, or that's at our activations, or that's the partnerships and the people that we connect with, the brands we connect with, we want to make sure that you are sure of who BÉIS is at every step of the way, and our core values and how we make you feel. And so I would say from the easiest way to strip back what I do is say we have a launch coming up, right? Who's the consumer that we want to reach with this launch once the product team has passed it off to us? Who's the consumer we want to reach? How are we going to reach them? Are we doing this through partnerships? Are we doing this through just our traditional channels? Is there a collaborative partner? How are we working with them? How do we bring it to life? We package up that whole story, and we work with our creative team for, what is the messaging behind this campaign? How are we speaking to these people? And then we sort of tell the story to the rest of our team, so our digital team, the rest of our marketing team, and then they create the tactics based on that story for how it comes to life.
That's so cool to hear the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And also, you mentioned storytelling, and that's something I also hear a lot of incredible marketers say, is that storytelling truly is at the center of really great campaigns and really great brand. So when it comes to you and you are working on brand or working on a story, what do you feel makes a really strong story that resonates with the consumer?
Well, I think having a very sure idea of who that consumer is the number one place and the number one most important thing, because the one thing that you need to do is step inside their shoes and feel, how are they going to react to this? How is this going to resonate with them? Where are they in their life and on their journey and on their path? And when they interact with the brand, how is it going to make them feel, and what is it going to spark, right? And so especially at BÉIS is a brand that started with so much storytelling. Shay is incredibly creative and incredibly close to the brand. And I know that that's not super traditional with celebrity run brands. I've worked with a few, and Shay is a team member, and everything that we do and everything we put out starts with her story, her vision, and the brand has really grown with that, right? We started with these travel bags. The Weekender was what she drew on the napkin, and that was the whole story. But we started with these travel bags because she was traveling all the time. She's an actress, right? And then she got pregnant. All of a sudden we had baby bags. Then her kids started growing up. Now we have a kids line, right? It's really followed her story, and it's so authentic to her. And I think that that's so important. But now, as we've grown our categories, we've grown our consumer, it really is just about creating that story of where they are. So we look at the products that we're selling them, and it's not just the bag, right? How is this bag going to integrate into your life? How's it going to make you feel when you step out into the world? It's an emotional purchase. It's not just something small to us. And so we really think about that, and we put ourselves in the consumer's shoes, and then we kind of strip it back and create the tactics to meet them there.
I love that.
Yeah.
And also something, I know you mentioned that BÉIS started as a celebrity founded brand. I feel like it's in a great way has grown to be so much more than that. And for you, since you've been there for the past 3 years, I feel like a lot of the growth has also happened throughout the last couple of years. So how has it been working at a company that is growing so fast and like you're there, you're leading it.
Whoa.
Or a part of leading it.
Like, we're all leading it. It's really been insane, I think. And I know we'll go into my journey, but I went from really large agency to a really tiny startup, then to BÉIS. And when I got in, I mean, one, already such a successful brand that I was already a consumer of the brand when I joined. But then there was this just like boom that I got in right before. And it's so cool. And it's actually crazy because I think our brand comes across as much larger than we are. We have a tiny team, especially on the brand and marketing team. I mean, now total, we're somewhere around 48, but that's across all departments, right? Yeah. And for a brand our size, we're 7 years old. Our brand team is, I mean, teeny tiny. Our marketing and creative team together is probably around 8 or 9 now, which if you look at any other brand our size, double, triple, right? But that is also because of all the things we've already talked about, the storytelling, how connected we are to the brand, how much we care about our output. We're all so attached to it. Growing our team is not easy because we're like, yes, come in, but also like care as much as we do.
Oh my God. I so resonate with that because well, I have a very small business here at Sky Society, but my number one thing I look for in new hires is, do you care about the brand? Like, do you just want to apply to this job because it's a job, or do you actually care just as much about it as
and the mission and where you're growing? And our team is so passionate about everything that we do. And I think that was something, honestly, when I started interviewing for BÉIS, I wasn't even looking for another job. It was just like through networking that it happened. And in every single interview that I had, I was like, oh my God, this is such a badass team. Like everybody cared so much. And it wasn't just about the brand. It was about each other. It was about the people. And I was like, I have to work there. And that has remained true in my 3 years.
You're literally giving me chills because that's the best feeling to have. And especially just talking to so many women, like not all of us feel that way all the time in every job that we have. And so that's really special when you get to come across a team like that. Okay, there's lots I want to talk to you about your role there, especially I know you recently got to model for the Gap campaign, but we're going to get there. I want to go backwards for a little bit and talk about your unconventional journey into marketing, because now you do obviously brand and marketing, but that isn't necessarily where you started. And I think it's really relatable to a lot of women listening that things might not turn out the way that you thought that they would, but hopefully in a really good way. So I know you started back in college, you were studying journalism, and then you switched into gender studies. So can you kind of take me back there?
Yes, I think the number one thing that's so important is if you don't know what you want to do, that's totally okay. Because going into college, I had no idea. I was like the high school student who thought, oh, I might be an actress, or maybe I'll go to theater school. I could do it. Like that was my whole childhood. I just loved to perform and storytell. It's not shocking where I landed, right? But then it was like a lot of women our age, I think, were like, oh, Juliana Rancic, E-News, broadcast. I could really see that because I've always loved talking to people. I love learning about people's stories. I love having fun. I love entertainment. I was like, okay, so I think that's my path. And when I went to college, I went in journalism. I thought I was sure. And then I went to the University of Wisconsin. The journalism program is really rigorous. It's an amazing program. And freshman year, I thought that's what I wanted. And then I had to take an elective. And I ended up getting swapped into this gender women's studies course. And I wish I could remember what the original course was. I can't at this point. But it was some intro into like women's psychology. And it was just like my brain exploded. And I tell everyone that, and I'm like, I don't have like eloquent words to explain how it was. But I think as somebody who grew up like me, and I'm mixed race. I grew up in a very predominantly white neighborhood. I never really understood my identity. My mom's Jewish. My dad was Baptist. There were just so many things that went into my life that I just didn't understand myself. I didn't have this sense of confidence. And when I took my gender women's studies course, it was the first time that I felt like identity is being stripped away, and I understood kind of the core of who I was and who I could be in this world. And I was listening to other people share very similar stories, but in very different life circumstances. And so the deeper I got into that course, I was like, I have to pursue this major. And I very hastily swapped my major, talked to my advisor, did it, and then I told my parents, and they were like, what are you going to do with a gender women's studies major? What does that even mean? And I was like, honestly, I don't know what it means, but I just, like, there's something here pulling me to take these courses, and I just have to do it. I do not regret it at all, and I'm very, very lucky for how it turned out. When I started taking gender women's studies courses, they were all different. Some were on sexuality, some were on reproductive health, some were on like critical race theory. The gamut was massive, and I just felt like, okay, now I feel like I'm understanding people and people that aren't like me, which obviously fast forward working with consumers and that's exactly where it came from, because I was in very uncomfortable conversations 24/7 with people who had experiences that looked nothing like mine and were very defensive about their experiences, as we all can be. And there were lots of debates. I was reading really intense literature and I was just like, wow, this has given me a new life perspective. And so still, I think as I went through college and I pursued this major, I had no idea what I was going to do with it. And I was super stressed about that. I had a lot of friends who were doing these internships in finance and they already had, jobs waiting for them around the other corner. And I had no idea where I was going. And so while I did that, we don't need to go into every job I've ever had, but rest assured, I've had every type of job. Like I worked at a country club, I worked in a store, I worked all this way through college. And I started taking internships. And there was an internship that I did that was in PR and marketing, but I didn't really necessarily know what that meant. I was just like helping these people remote on programs that they were working. And then I started working I worked at a community center and I was a summer school teacher. And I loved taking the learnings that I was getting in class and then helping these high school and middle school women. And so I was like, okay, I think I want to be a teacher. And that's where the path started going. And then I was reached out to by a professor to apply for this job that was actually, for all intents and purposes, a sex ed teacher at the university. So it was this program where students were trained by doctors and then sent out to various campus organizations. So we taught the athletes, we taught sororities and fraternities, we taught whoever hired the program came. And so it would be me and like 20 and 30 students talking about sex and pleasure and disease prevention and really uncomfortable topics when you're a peer-to-peer situation, right?
Yeah.
But it was something that I feel like I can do anything because I did that job, right? Like I stood in front of the freshman football class and told them about how to have safe sex by myself.
Oh my goodness.
And
Did you know where your career path was going at this point?
0%. Like 0%. And I'm telling you, I didn't have clarity until way post-graduation, like into my first job. I was thinking, okay, I really do like teaching. Like I like standing up in front of a room and helping communicate something and helping people expand their mindsets and learn something new and feel something and resonate with whatever material I'm giving them. And so I thought that was it. And I started to pursue the Teach for America path. And that's where I thought I was going. And I was in like my third round interviews and they started to talk about the most at need areas in the US that year. And the top 3 locations, I remember them coming out and being like, I'm not as good of a person as I thought I was. Because I grew up in the middle.
Relatable, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the middle of downtown Chicago, and then they were like, you might need to move to the middle of nowhere, Mississippi. And I was like, I don't think I can do it. Like, I can't commit to 2 years by myself. And so I dropped out of the interview process. Again, my parents are like, okay, so now what, And then a friend of mine, actually, who had graduated before me from Orange County, called me and she was telling me about how she was starting the idea around starting a swimwear line back at home in California. And she was asking me for help. And at the time, I loved writing. Like, I've always had a blog. I've always shared my work, my written work. And she was like, can you help me start a blog? Can you help me write some captions for social? And then it became, can you help me with the creative? Can you help me with the photo shoots? And so obviously I now know this was marketing, right? But back then I was like, I'm just helping out a friend and I find these things interesting. And the topic was really around like body positivity and identity. And I was like, oh, this is my jam. So I loved it and I was helping her. And she and her family came back to campus and they were like, can you come after graduation for this summer? You can move into our house. Just help her start the brand. Like, she's alone and she needs support. And I heard that as, you have 4 more months to figure it out, right? Where you're going to go. So 2 days after graduation, I packed up my car. I came to California, and then I've been here for 7 years.
That is insane. Okay, I have a lot of follow-up questions
Yeah.
because you covered a lot. So during this period, you're trying a bunch of different things. And I love that because I always give the advice of the best way to figure out what you want to do is sometimes by cross-elimination.
Yeah.
Picking, like you mentioned, while I was doing this sex ed teaching, and I figured out I loved this piece, the teaching piece. And I just think the best way to figure those things out is just by doing a bunch of things. You can't always figure that out in a classroom. So I want to say I love that that was your approach. And I know you keep kind of going back to my parents were like, what are you going to do, Sydney? What are you going to do? What advice do you have for somebody who's maybe going through this and their parents are also like, what are you going to do? Like, you need to get paid. Like, you're doing these things, but like, what's that going to turn out and look like in a career? Any advice for people that are going through that?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because everyone's experiences are so different and the world looks a lot different now than it did when I was going through it. But I was so sure of myself that I was going to land on my feet, and I was willing to do anything to get there and support myself in the process, right? So even when I told my parents I was moving to California, my dad immediately is like, I'm not supporting, like, how are you going to afford to live in California on your own? And I was like, well, I'll just get jobs, right? Like, I worked at a clothing store. I did what I had to do to pave my way while I was going through the process. And I feel like my number one piece of advice would be, don't be too proud for anything in that process, right? Because I know a lot of us graduate college and we're like, well, my life should look like this. My job should look like this. And sometimes it's not that way, and it's a little messy to get there, and that's totally okay. Mm-hmm. And my path was untraditional, and I was lucky, right? This family was willing to let me live with them. I wasn't paying rent. I didn't have all these bills, and they were really helping take care of me. So that was super lucky. But I think regardless, I would have bet on myself and done something. And that's what I ultimately ended up doing when I left their house and moved to LA and like needed to figure out how to support myself in the process.
Well, also, I really believe in, it's not just luck, it's the opportunities that you create that make that luck happen, right? You just started by helping a friend. You didn't know it was going to turn into this opportunity. And I think there's something to be said for putting yourself out there and like creating opportunities for yourself to be lucky, because you can't be lucky if you're not taking risk or doing those things.
And just being active in the process. Something that I kind of breezed over in the college process, which I've shared a lot in the mentorship program, is I worked at a clothing store for a summer. And then back when I was in the year, or going back into the school year, I was like, oh, I kind of still want that job. Like, it was nice to feel like I had a little extra money. I liked people. I didn't just like going to class and then sitting in my apartment. So I was like, I need a stop along the way. So I worked part-time again. And then when I was there, the brand was new to campus. We didn't have a ton of consumers. It was like a cute women's clothing brand. And they were like, we need to get more people in the store. How do we do that? Again, I'm not thinking marketing. When I went to Wisconsin, the marketing program was in the business school. It was so numbers focused. It was so serious. I was like, I would never be a marketing major. I would never be in marketing. Crazy. But all my friends were always stressed that we're in marketing and all that. But we needed new consumers in the store. And that was a time where Instagram was a thing, but we were all like posting for our friends. It wasn't really like what it is today. And so I was like, well, let's start social media. So I started the social media. And then it was like, oh, okay, well, how do we get pictures for our social media? So I started an ambassador program, and I had my friends come in, and I would give them 5 pieces a month, and I'd take pictures of them, I'd post it on Instagram, and then it grew into this like large program. So now, again, I know that that's marketing, but back then I was just like, I want to be as helpful as possible. I had a job. I was a store associate. The store was hurting. They needed help, and I was like, well, let's solve that. And I think that's what not enough people do, is make yourself as helpful as possible in the process, because you're also learning, right? Like, putting yourself out there, starting the ambassador program, starting social media, those are skill sets that I still use today. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time. At the time, I was just trying to help the store. Yeah,
I love that. And I will always generally say, like, going above and beyond at any role is not just helpful for the company, but almost selfishly for you, when you're like saying yes to things that aren't normally going to be a part of your role or responsibility, because those are skills that you get to learn. And maybe at the time, like you said, you didn't know what it was going to turn into, but you never know how all of these little pieces will connect later and be a part of your career. They might not like make sense in the moment.
Definitely.
But they all do add up.
It's also things you can talk about in interview processes, right? Like when I started actually getting into marketing and how that went, I remember a client being like, oh, we needed a college ambassador program. I was like, oh, I've done this before. They're like, what? You're 21. What is that? I'm like, oh, I did this in college. Come on. Like, it was things that I had that I didn't realize would come back to help me. And they have every step of the way.
Let me know if you feel similar, but something that I have been thinking about a lot recently is being naive when you're young and this confidence that it gives you.
Blind confidence.
Yeah. And I sometimes think always think like, oh my gosh, I have this podcast, but I was like so naive of like, yeah, of course, like, why wouldn't all these women want to come on my podcast? And so, like, I just started it and it happened. And I'm, like, hearing your story of, like, yeah, of course I'm going to go to LA and things are going to work out for me. Like, why wouldn't they work out for me? But I also just feel like that naivety, like, when you're young is just so powerful, because then once you get older and you're maybe more comfortable in your life, or you have, like, more bills or overhead, it's just harder sometimes to take those risks.
100%. I think the number one motivator was I was so hungry to be successful, and I was so hungry to prove my parents wrong, right? And them being like, what are you going to do with gender women's? I mean, they were always super supportive, but they were like, what are
your word for you?
What are you going to do with that? That doesn't translate to a career path. And I was like, watch me. And that, especially when you're young, is so powerful, because I said yes to everything, every opportunity, every networking event, everything that I could do just to get my foot in the door, because I was so hungry to just get there and prove everyone wrong. And I agree with you. Now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, not nearly as hungry. I'm tired. But I do think that has helped every step of the way.
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset and great advice too. If you're like, things aren't exactly where you want them to be in your career, that's totally okay, because the pieces can connect and they will connect.
And I think that's something, and we can get into it later, but I think that's something that's kind of damaging about social media now, where you see people in these roles and it's such a highlight reel, and it's like, this is how I got here and this is how you do it. And that's not the case. I've never met anyone at my level who has the same story, right? And how we got here in this process. And it's so important to hear the reality of what actually goes on behind the scenes and not just watch the highlight reel, because I think it's so damaging to your mental health. And you think, oh, well, I could never do that because my life doesn't look like that, or my path doesn't look like that, or I didn't study that. And it's just not true.
Especially for marketing, I always say, like, the best part about marketing is you could come in from any background, any degree, any experience. It also sometimes makes it really competitive for the roles. But the benefit is that anybody can come in from any background. And I also see, especially with young women, like, you want to work at the big brand right away, right? You want to graduate college and work at the really cool brand that you see on social media. And I know we'll get into your story of starting at a startup. But that's not how it always looks. Like, for most people, even my podcast guests, like, it's really, really rare if I have somebody that's like, I knew I wanted to work at this company and I graduated college and it happened. Like, 99% of the time, it's like this whole windy journey until they got there. And then also I'm interviewing them at a moment in their career.
Definitely. And you have no idea what it's going to look like past this, right?
Exactly.
Like, this is such a moment in time.
Yeah.
An amazing one, but you never know.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about, you started working at a startup, and that's kind of how you networked and met CEO that kind of transitioned into you working at BÉIS. So can you talk to me about that?
Yes. Sort of. Okay. I went swimwear startup, and then I went to a temporary contract role at a post-production role. It was like an 8-week role on the Red Table Talk Show. I had networked through family, friends. At this point in my career, when the summer was over and I had to actually choose to move, I was calling everyone I knew. I was like, what does your mom do again? Can I talk to her? What is your dad? You know, like, I was literally doing everything I could. And a friend of mine that I grew up with in Chicago, his mom had a production studio in LA. They were like, we have this temporary contract. We need post-production help. I was like, perfect, I'll take anything. So I took that role and I did it for 8 weeks. And while I was at that role, I actually did love it. And I was working overtime and meeting a lot of cool people. And I had officially moved up to LA. I was doing the same thing. I was calling everyone I knew. And then I, through a family friend, got a connection to an entertainment agency in LA. They were hiring on the digital marketing team for a super entry-level assistant role. And she was like, well, you should apply. I applied to that role. I had no idea what digital marketing was. I mean, they were talking about paid media and all these things in our interview, and I was like, sure, I can do that. Like, I'll learn, you know? And so I ended up getting that role, and then that is the role that really catapulted me, I'd say, into marketing. That was when I started to learn, like, the different levers you're pulling, the different types of marketing. I think people hear marketing and they're like, it's one big job. There are a million different people that contribute to marketing. And so this was the one where I started as a digital assistant. We were working on different, like, Oscar campaigns for films. At the same time, we were running people's social media. We were doing paid media and advertising. And as I grew at the agency, I then got into the more integrated marketing side, which is when I started doing events and activations. And that's where I found my love of the actual brand side of marketing. I was at that agency for almost 4 years. And that was definitely, I could have stayed there. I saw my path there. I'd gotten promoted a few times there, and I was like, okay, I have great benefits. The pay was not great, but it was what it is, agency-wise, especially 7 years ago. And I was like, I'm just unhappy. I really want to grow with a brand and feel like my work matters and see the impact of my work. When you're at the agency, or maybe the agency I was at, but you're just kind of pitching ideas all the time and doing whatever your client needs, but you're not necessarily a part of the process and, like, the joy or have all the inside knowledge that the team does. And I just wanted that. I felt like something was missing. And so I'd been kind of vocal. I wouldn't say that's for the best, but I think I had just gotten comfortable, and we'd gone through COVID, and while we were remote, I was pretty vocal with my team. Not my boss, but my team, that I wasn't the happiest and that I was sort of looking for a transition. And
wait, can I actually stop you there? Because I am curious how you vocalize that to your team. That's a tough thing to tell.
It is, and that's why I'm saying I don't recommend it. I do and I don't recommend it, right? Because it worked for me, but I'm not saying it would work for everybody. I think for me, my number one, the most important thing to me on any team or in any role I've ever been in is the relationships that I build with the people around me. And that has something that's anchored me from when I worked at a personal training studio in Chicago all the way to my job today. The people around you, you have no idea who they're going to be, where they're going to go, how they can support you, how you can support them. And I've seen that come over time and time again as a theme in my career. And a VP that I had worked for and reported to, I'd built a pretty close relationship with her. We'd traveled the world together for our clients. We'd been in the trenches together on different activations and events, and I felt very close to her, and like she was a confidant of mine. And I also really respected her. She was older than me. She had, climbed the ropes and done the things more than I had. And I think I was 23 or 24, and I was just like, I feel really lost, and I feel like I'm not doing what I want to be doing. And I'm looking at the people around me and above me and thinking, I don't want this. I don't want my life to look like theirs. I think that I'm kind of wasting my potential here. And I was vocal with that with her, and she never judged that or didn't put me on different clients because of that. She was trying to support and help me. Mm-hmm. And it was actually her who, when I went to the small startup afterwards, which is a sexual wellness startup called Woo, she was the one who gave my resume. And she had found out about the job through a friend. And I think the friend had approached her for the job, and it was like below what she should have been doing. But she knew that I had the sexual wellness background. She knew that I wanted to go out. She knew that I wanted to go brand side. And she gave them my resume. And then she came to me and she's like, I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, but I want to let you know they're probably going to reach out to you. You should take the conversation.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Also, I know what you said. You're like, I don't know if I recommend it, but I do think there's something for telling the people around you what your goals are.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to what we said earlier, like you never know who can help you. And I think that's actually a big theme in your career.
It is.
Because you also mentioned how you were like calling everybody that you knew.
Yeah.
Like, is there anything that I can do? And even like before all the roles that you took. Because you never know who can help you.
Yeah.
And, or even in what capacity. Like for you, it looked this way, but I've heard other stories of it. Like you have no idea how it's going to look. And having somebody that you trust too, I think is also, like you mentioned, the relationship aspect.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, if you have that relationship where you can kind of be vulnerable and open up.
And that's why I say I don't recommend it to everyone, because it is like a gut people skill set. I think you know when you can trust somebody. If I have no skills and you stripped everything away, I think people is like the number one thing I've had my whole life. And I thank my parents for that. They were always socializing us. We were always around adults. I was always around people that were different than me. And so I feel like I can read people. And maybe that was part of my major too, right? I understand people. I like know their tells. I know their experiences. And so I felt really close to her, and I felt like I could trust her. And honestly, it wasn't even like I want to quit. I'm unhappy. It was just I'm lost. And I feel like I'm not reaching my potential and I need support.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us at some point in our careers will face that.
Yeah.
And it's so important to like what you did, which was you did something about it. Because I think it's really easy once you are comfortable. And like you said, like you could have stayed there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been terrible if you stayed there. But obviously we know, not the ending, but we know where you are now and how happy you are. And that doesn't come from not taking those risks and not putting yourself out there. Because
and having people that believe in you is the most important thing. And I have been incredibly lucky with the people that I've met along the way and the support that I have. And even, for her, I worked with her. I was working on clients with her. Me leaving was a problem for her.
Yeah.
But she believed in me and she wanted to support me. And when I took the call and then I took the interview and I was in the process, I had to do a project. She was helping me. And the job was below her, but it was above me. And there were things that they had asked me in the interview and the project, and she was helping me with it. And it's just like because she believed in me and she wanted me to be happy. And I feel very similarly about so many people that I've worked with. And if they reached out, I would help them in the same capacity because I know how important that was to me. Yeah. And so it's just that people part of what we do is incredibly important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
So yes, then I went to the startup.
Okay, perfect.
Then I went to Woo. I was at Woo. It's actually crazy when I look back. I think I was there for only a little over a year and a half. It felt like a lifetime, which is nuts. But I call Woo like my business school experience. And I never went to business school. I thought that maybe I would, but I think where I'm at now, I just don't see it in the cards. But when I went to Woo, it was, when I say small startup, successful, but tiny. It was when I got hired, the founder, I think one other full-time hire, and then a bunch of freelancers. And then they hired me as a brand manager to help with the marketing, the creative, the look, the feel, the consumer, all of that. Then I got into product development. I was working alongside the founder with every single part of the brand and the success. They were going through like diligence processes with different people looking to buy that, and I was a part of that. I was like 25, 26, like sure, I'll make up anything, right? And so I was sitting there and I worked so closely with them and I loved it. I loved working there. It was a tiny brand, but it was under the Dear Media umbrella. So it was also nice post-COVID because we worked in person. So I was around people again, and I got to see the work Dear Media was doing and the really awesome people that were coming in to record there. And then through Woo, I felt like I was helping people again from that teaching mentality because it was sexual wellness and it was a lot about women and pleasure. And I was just like, oh, I get to put that brain back on and, you know, help run campaigns that feel impactful and fun and silly. And so that was amazing. And when I left Woo, I was not looking to leave. I actually was not even uncomfortable or sad. I think the one thing I didn't love about being there was that we were still small, so we didn't have like big budgets and there was a lot we couldn't do. And I just had so many dreams and visions for the brand, and that was hard, but I was happy, and I could have been there for years and years and years. But it was actually the same woman who helped me transition from my agency to Woo who had gone over to BÉIS. And she was there only temporarily, but she was there and she was looking for a right hand, and she called me and she was like, will you take an interview? And at first I said, I don't think so. If I leave, it's going to be really detrimental to the brand, which, yes, you always think that, right? I think that's a huge piece of advice in your career. You can move on. You are replaceable. That is okay. That's not a bad thing. It's true. It should actually give you freedom because you can make decisions and go down different paths, right? But I was like, it's going to be detrimental. It's a Black Friday. I can't leave right now, whatever. She was like, just take the call. Just meet the CEO. So I met our CEO, Adila. I think at the time she was the president. I met her, which was atypical in the interview process, but I think Courtney is the name of the woman that I keep referencing. She was like, you're going to love her, and I just want you to meet her. And so I took a call with her, and I was like, oh my God, I'm in trouble.
Oh, no.
And then I met my now boss, Liz, who is amazing. And it was just like both interviews were so conversational and awesome, and the plans for the brand were so cool, and I knew it was a good time to get in, and I knew that I was actually looking at people whose lives I wanted, and I know that sounds weird, but I think when you're in a role, my gut check of like, when is it time to go, is looking at the people above you and being like, is this how I want to live? Are they doing what I want to do? Because that's my next step, right? Mm-hmm. And the answer was usually no when I looked around in my other career paths. And then when I was at Woo, when I was meeting everyone, I was like, these aren't just smart women. They're also wives, mothers. They're living these full lives. They're having so much fun. I could tell it was a really close team. And I was just like, there's so much to learn there. Yeah. And so the rest is history.
Incredible. Also, I love that rule of thumb for deciding if you even want to go to a company or if you want to leave, of like, not just looking at the roles above you, but the lives of people in those roles, because that tells you a lot about the full picture.
Yeah. And I think in the interview too, we were talking about so many different topics, not just the role and what they were looking for, but it was really conversational about life and like the dynamics of our CEO's children, because she found out I have 2 siblings that are older than me and we're all super close in age, and she was like asking me questions about that. And then with my now boss, I think we were talking about different things that ended up like wellness, working out. I'm like, okay, so you're all living balanced lives while working at this amazing brand and you're having fun while doing it. I was like, I've got to see what it's all about. Yeah. And I'm lucky that I got the chance to.
And that's incredible too. You said, was it Victoria? Or
Courtney,
sorry, I don't know how I got Victoria. How Courtney is like someone that was really there and helped you. Yeah. And I think, especially obviously a podcast for women in marketing, is that for us women, it's so important to have someone in your life like that is such an incredible thing for your career. And I know you've talked about of like trying to be that for other women as well. Just like how like us supporting each other and being advocates for each other in our career is just the best thing ever. And like, obviously, I'm sure you're really grateful to have someone like that in your life. And I think all of us are, for the women that we have that help and support us and how we can help and support other women.
Definitely. And I think 100% special shout out to all of the women in my life. I have worked for some really incredible men as well. So I will say that has also been important in my career. I have just been really lucky to nurture the types of relationships that have come my way and to work with really amazing people that care. And I think that's why the number one through line for me is always, if you're going to work on one skill, let it be people and let it be the connections that you build. Because Courtney was somebody who took the risk on me multiple times, because when we worked together, I was as helpful as possible. I was there for her. I was always the one, jumping in, not just personally, but professionally, because that's what matters to me. I can't work somewhere or with someone that I don't feel connected to or passionate about. I just can't. I'm not someone who can. And I think that that's important now. Like, there are so many people and young women who have worked for me that I would do anything for because of the same thing. And it's so important.
Well, now we got to the answer of how you got your job at BÉIS.
Yeah.
And I'm sure and I love that it's not like a quick and easy, like, I did X.
Right.
And I got Y. Like, it is so many things that went into that. And I just think that's such a great story for people to hear if there is like a dream brand, whether it's BÉIS or any other brand that you want to work at. It's not just like you do these 3 things and like it turns into that role. There's so much that goes into that. And I love your message around people and relationship building, because I really do believe, now having just heard so many stories, that's like always kind of the center thread, is that
it really is.
You really never know when they're going to come back or how they're going to help you in your career. And so I love that your journey is very non-traditional.
Yeah, and nurture those relationships. Check in with people. I mean, there's still people that I talked to for my first job in LA, not because you're like, I'm going to need to use you one day, but because you care and you foster these relationships. And then there have been multiple times where we've needed partnerships, or we're looking for something, or we need advice, and I can reach out to my network because I nurture those relationships, and vice versa. And there's so many people who I haven't spoken to in 2 years, but if they called me today, I would pick up because of that bond that we've built. And that's just a huge piece of advice to everyone. Don't look at things transactionally, right? Like, help build that network over time. It's really important. And I've seen the reverse, right? Where when I worked at the agency, there was definitely a few people who didn't love working with me, and now I've heard from all of them since I've been at BÉIS that want to work with me, and I'm like, wait, but you were not that nice to me when I was 24 and that matters to me.
Yes, that's so funny. Okay, so now getting back around to where you currently are now at BÉIS, one of the things that I also noticed is that you've been there for 3 years,
almost,
3 years, and you've also had 3 different titles. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So talk to me about your growth at the company and why you feel like you've been able to grow so quickly.
Ooh, good question. I'm like, how do I say this in a way that doesn't feel weird? I'm very proud of my growth, definitely. I think I've always been somebody who strived for more and wanted really lofty goals. I've always looked at job titles above mine and how can I get there and what can I do and what skills can I learn along the way. And so the 3 titles is because when I came to BÉIS, I actually took a title demotion. It was, I will say, more money, but it was a lesser title, lesser job than the one that I was sitting in. And I say that to be really transparent because I think it's important that sometimes when you notice an opportunity is good, you can still go for it. It doesn't have to be linear. It doesn't have to be above you. Sometimes it's below you. And to me, I don't regret that for 1 second. And especially because titles are not the same cross-brand. I think I know people who have the same title as me who do less or do more. You know, it
varies at every
It varies
company.
in every, yeah. And so I got rid of my senior title, went over to BÉIS as a manager, and that was because the opportunity was amazing, and I was so excited about it, and I could see all of the benefits outside of that. And then, yeah, I got lucky because, not lucky, that sounds bad.
You worked hard.
I worked hard. I know. People are like, stop saying that. I'm like, okay, I do work really hard. But so Courtney was at BÉIS, and our overlap was only like 6 or 7 months. She was there for short term. I think she was someone who got in that role and was in a different life stage and realized it wasn't the role for her. And so she transitioned out, and she was the marketing director. I was the marketing manager. And when she left, there were all these conversations that I was overhearing about them hiring. And they were like, okay, well, we might hire a VP or hire another marketing backfill for Courtney's role. And I was really bold. And I went to my bosses and I said, please don't. I was like, give me a chance to prove to you that that's my role, because I know that it is. And I saw the ins and outs of what she did every day, and I know that I can do it. And I just need a chance. And it was a scary risk for them to take. I mean, I think not that your age matters, but I was greener than her. You know, I was younger and had less experience, but I knew that I could do it. And it was, again, that blind confidence. And they allowed that. And so they didn't immediately backfill. It was still a conversation. They were like, we'll just work on this transition. And in that process, they were like, okay, well, let's promote you at least back into senior manager because we need somebody that's a little bit more senior on the marketing team. And then the conversation came up again a few months later. Should we hire a VP? Should we hire somebody? And my boss, Liz, is when I think like her and Shay, the way they've built that brand and the creative and the storytelling, it sits with them. So when they were talking about hiring another senior person in marketing, I was like, don't. Like, you guys have the brand and then I will get there. Do not. And I had confidence. And I had this conversation with them. And, you know, of course, I mean, they're my bosses. They could have easily been like, no.
Yeah.
Right. And I would have been fine with that too. But I just knew that if I had somebody that came in and felt like a ceiling, I would get discouraged. And I was like, let me just like spread my wings and try. And so they gave me the chance, and I sat in my senior manager position for a year, and then I got promoted into the director role.
That is amazing, Sydney. Like, absolutely amazing. And also, I just think such a great takeaway of, like, you have to ask for the things that you want.
Yeah.
You can't assume that your bosses knew that you wanted this extra responsibility.
Exactly. And it's incredibly uncomfortable. And I go through this conversation with a lot of my friends and peers, even who, not just at BÉIS, but at different companies, who are ready for that next position and they want to move, but they're not seeing movement. And I'm always like, are you having the conversation?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what am I supposed to say? I'm like, say what you want.
Yeah.
You know, and have that conversation. The answer is not always yes. It hasn't always been yes in my career, but how would they know? And if I sat there as someone who was newer, I think when Courtney left, I'd only been at BÉIS for 8 months. And if I had just sat there and let it happen, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I took the risk because I believed in myself and I knew I could get there. And I just wanted a chance to prove that.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah. And also, the worst thing that could have happened is they said no. And then, yeah, at least you know that you asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, and I'm not saying that it's easy, and I think there's a way to do it, but I expressed what I wanted, and I expressed that I knew that I could do it, and I just needed a chance, and I needed their confidence, and they were like, okay, almost trial run, right? Like, let's see how it goes over the next few months. I think it also took pressure off their back to kind of spiral and get there. I took on a lot of extra work in the process, and I think that that's another piece of the advice that I would give is, you are going to have times in your career where you are overworked and your plate is super full, but that to me has always been okay because it's gotten me where I wanted to go. And I was sitting in meetings I had no business sitting in, and I was making decisions that I had no business making at the time, but that ultimately catapulted me to be the person who could make those decisions because they needed the support and I was willing to give it.
Yeah, I love that. And just hearing, again, now that we get to see the full picture of your story and seeing how all the pieces connect, that confidence has been there all the time. I love it.
It's been in there somewhere.
It's been in there. It's been in there. Okay, let's get into some fun questions. So talk to me. Okay, you recently modeled. I have to ask you about that. So for those of you who don't know, BÉIS recently did a collaboration with Gap, which is absolutely amazing. And not only did they do a collaboration, but some of the employees modeled in a campaign, and Sydney was one of them. Can you tell me about that process?
Yes, the process is Shay had a vision, which is usually how the process begins. Shay is so creative and she's such a storyteller. And when we were working on Gap, it had been over a year. I mean, we have very long lead times, and we were working on this storytelling, and the campaign was really focused on her and her family. And when it came to the BÉIS side of it, she was like, I just want our employees in the e-com imagery for that part of the creative. She was just like, it feels like this is all of our babies and we're working on it. And she's like, it's my family story and this is a part of it, you know? So she was the one who wanted it. And there were a bunch of assets. Like, we broke into the store and shopped and merched over the store the night before, and then we put that on social media. So there was so much that she wanted us a part of. And I think also at BÉIS, like, we do that, right? Our employees are all over our social media. We love doing the peek behind the curtain and all of that. And it wasn't even like she knows with me. It wasn't even, would you be comfortable? It's like, you're modeling. And I will say yes to pretty much anything. And I was
Were you nervous?
Oh, so nervous. But I also, I don't know, my team is so close. It was comfortable. We have a studio in our office. It wasn't like I had to do something really crazy. It was crazy though when I got there, and like I was in hair and makeup and her stylist was styling me, and I was like, what is going on? But it was so much fun. I mean, there was like music blasting. All my teammates are like hyping me up and screaming, and we're having fun. And it was really crazy to see when it came out, because I was like, oh, this is just going to be a great photo to put on my Hinge. Like, I was like, whatever. But then when they were like, now you go on the website, they're there. They've been all over our social media. It's really crazy, but it was so fun.
Is it also on your Hinge?
I actually deleted the dating apps, but but if I ever get them back, yes, it will be.
Oh my goodness. Ooh, you looked amazing in the photos. Like, it was honestly so cool to see. And also, I'm sure, really awesome that she wanted the employees to be a part of it. And I can see that being a fun team bonding activity.
It was.
You guys all doing it together.
Yeah, and we were taking group shots, and, you know, she's the one running on set and styling everyone and moving us. Like, it was really fun because I'm on the other side of the camera and I get to watch her work all the time. But to be on the other side of it and, like, placed by her and doing it was just really cool to see her work that way and to see how it came to life with our creative director.
Are there any other campaigns that come to mind that you've worked on while you've been at BÉIS that are just all-time favorites?
Oh my God, so many.
Pick a favorite child.
It's really hard. I would say the ones that I feel the closest to of like, wow, that was so cool. The number one is our base wash. I don't know if you saw that campaign.
Yes, I did see where that like all the luggage just went into the little wash.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that one, I think the reason that it feels the way, one, it was just so cool. It was so successful. We were so proud of it. But that was also one of the campaigns when I told them, like, take a risk on me that I got to lead. And I think that was the first thing that I felt like, wow, like I really got to help bring this to life. And so I feel, personally so connected to it. But that one was really amazing because we do pop-ups all the time. That's a part of, our strategies. But that was one that was just super, like, that was to answer to a consumer problem, and we just wanted to have fun with it, and we wanted to give them a service, and we wanted them to come in and be with us and just see our creative and feel our magic in life. And so when I look back, I'm really, really proud of that one.
Yeah, that one was a fun one. I do remember that. And also because this was at the time when you guys were getting like a little bit of backlash on like just that the luggages got dirty.
Luggage gets dirty when you travel. Can you believe it?
Yeah. But that was just such a fun response to it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like when you see brands take that approach to responding to stuff like that. Yeah.
We were like, actually, they're really easy to clean. This is how you do it. And here are the partners that we do it with. And I think that one too was really fun how we brought it to life with certain partners. Like we worked with Scrub Daddy. We worked with Branch Basics. We worked with Chamberlain Coffee. And those were relationships that I had been building while being at BÉIS. So when it all came together, I was just really proud of the way that it came together.
Yeah. Okay, and then I also wanted to ask you about your own personal brand. It's because obviously I found City on TikTok.
That's so funny that it was TikTok.
And you've been, like, you make content around behind the scenes at working at BÉIS. And one, I want to say, I know not all brands, especially because I ask women to be on podcasts and sometimes can't because they have restrictions for the brands that they work at. But obviously, because I know a lot of the BÉIS employees do sometimes make content, that's one, awesome that your company supports that, but also for your personal journey of like, how do you see that aligning with also your career goals?
Yeah, the content part of it is something that I never really saw doing. I've always posted on social media for fun, and I love taking pictures and I love sharing. I also am somebody who is chronically online. I think that's part of anyone in my role needs to be, right? What is cool, what's trending, what are people loving, what are they hating? And so it felt like a natural transition, but then there was also a lot of pressure from my friends. They're like, you need to share your life. It's so fun. And I'm like, well, it is super fun, but it's also mine, and how do you share that? And when you're starting to film things, it automatically feels a little bit less organic because it's like, oh, let me get my phone out and
Yeah.
But actually the way that it's come together has been really natural, and that's really amazing. I think I never sought out to do it to build a personal brand. If anything, it's just to share and help, similar to what you're doing, help women who aren't in roles like mine and who want to see what it looks like, see what my life looks like, help. It's also made me connect with people really well because there's so many girls who follow me who I've never met, and they comment on every video and they ask questions and they ask me to film certain things, and I do, and it's just created these amazing relationships, and it's been a lot of fun. And I think also there's a bunch of people at my company who do post on social media, and Paige specifically, shout out. She is our senior social media manager, and she creates a lot of personal content, and she's the one who was like, share, your content's good, believe in yourself. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll try. And like literally every day I have DMs from her, and she's like, film this, do this is the angle you should take. I'm like, we'll just see how this goes.
Yeah. Well, I think your side's relatable because a lot of us might want to, but maybe it's not comfortable for all of us organically, right? I know for me personally, I'm like, I definitely need to take the challenge of like forcing myself to do it more because it doesn't feel comfortable to me all the time. And it's cool to hear from your perspective, like, I wasn't sure about it, I didn't know.
Yeah, I was like, let's just try.
Yeah, but I'm sure you, like, maybe you made new connections like me.
It's true. And that's the thing is, like, the only thing it's done for me is expand my network. Yeah. So it was just another way to do it, and it's been amazing. Like, I have so many social media friends, including yourself, that have actually become real relationships, or people that I've worked with, or different connections to brands that we've done collaborations with. Like, it's all come from social media, which is super cool. And I think, I don't know, the one thing I struggle with is honestly, like, yes, I do share really fun days, but majority of my job is taking meetings that I'm usually at my house and I'm like in my sweatpants, right? So getting creative with how to film things, especially when a lot of what I do is very confidential, I'm like, I just don't want to be boring to people.
Yeah, you're definitely not, because I see your videos. Definitely follow City on TikTok.
Thank you so much.
All right, one other thing I also wanted to chat with you about is outside of your career, you are also involved in a couple different things.
Yes.
You are are a board member for Teens of Color Abroad, and you most recently have been a marketing girly mentor at Sky Society. So first I want to ask you about your experience being a mentor at Sky Society. So for those of you who don't know, we actually recently started this program this year. You were like one of our earliest mentors. And obviously our mission at Sky Society is to help empower women in marketing, and doing the Marketing Girly Mentor was a way to kind of connect younger women with mentors. So what was your experience being a mentor?
It was amazing. I just think what you're doing is so amazing. And I know I told you that before, but
thank you.
Giving people the chance to learn directly from the people in the roles that they want to be in is so invaluable. And when I was coming up in my marketing career, I wish that it had existed, because I would have loved a program like this. And even just the camaraderie. Like, I've seen the way that the women that I was working with have forged these beautiful relationships, and they're so supportive of each other. And every time I'm on LinkedIn, I see each other, they're in their comments and they're sharing their portfolios. Like, it's so beautiful and it's so important. And the reason it was so exciting to me is, one, I've loved forever doing mentorship opportunities and helping. I think in my personal life, like, I'm the friend who's always giving advice. Most of my friends call me either their mother or their therapist. And then for work, I've also always really taken on that role, especially with more like of our entry level hires. And I wish I could help more people. And my DMs, I see it all the time. There's a lot of women like, can I have 20 minutes? Can I do this? And I wish I could say yes, but I simply can't, like, based on time. So when you came to me with this Sky Society opportunity, I was really excited, because I knew that I could work with a lot of young women and actually do it impactfully and hopefully work with them deeply, which is exactly what happened. It started as 4 sessions that you guys set up, and then it led to various one-on-ones. I've talked to all of them. We're all still on Slack. We chat all the time. Aww. They tell me when they're interviewing. They tell me when they get roles. Like, I love what it's created. When I modeled in Gap, they were all sharing it. They were all commenting on my social media. It was so cute. They're amazing.
That's amazing to hear. And it's also super thankful for women like you who do share your time, because I'm sure you are so busy, and it means so much to those girls. And I even saw that they received a little bit of bait. Like, you sent them BÉIS, which I absolutely know just like totally made their days, because they're normal people that don't normally get sent stuff like that. So you absolutely went above and beyond in helping them. And I think especially for them, just having that support of getting to talk to somebody through it and getting to build a close relationship, I think has been really supportive from them. So I've heard just like nothing but great things from them. So I also wanted to thank you.
Thank you. That's so sweet. It's so funny. When I started doing it, I was like, I feel like I'm just talking. Like, I hope it's helpful. They're like, no, this is amazing. I'm like, okay, well, just ask me what you want to know, because I will talk forever.
Even talking with you now, I'm like, we could literally talk about so much. And then also tell me about becoming a board member for Teens of Color Abroad, and what it's even like being a board member.
Yeah, that one has been really surreal. It has been amazing. And I think I've always looked for ways outside of just my traditional role to expand my knowledge, to help people, to do whatever I can. And that one happened really organically, actually, through BÉIS. So when I first started at BÉIS, we were looking for more cause partners, and how can we continue to give back and have a lasting impact outside of just what we do in our day-to-day. And I was researching different organizations, and obviously Teens of Color Abroad provides global learning and language opportunities for students of color. And obviously the travel component and what they're doing, they were, they were providing passports to students. They were sending students to France. Now they were sending to Spain at the time. Now it's Spain and France. I saw this opportunity here. They were such a small organization, and I was like, oh my God, we can really grow with you as a partner. Obviously the travel component, a lot of the cause partners that we work with are with young people, and we were like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. So I started a relationship with the founder. They were really, really teeny tiny at the time, and he was a teacher living in Brooklyn, starting the organization outside of his apartment, and he was making such an amazing impact already. And we were just like, how as a brand can we support you? And so that relationship grew over the years. And then this year he came to me and asked me to be a board member, which was really, really crazy. I feel like that was something where I had this whole year has been really severe imposter syndrome, because I'm 29 years old, and that's something that I'm really proud of where I've come. But also I used to have a lot of shame around my age and hide it, because I was so young and I was reaching these goals, and I felt like people didn't take me seriously. And so I would hide how old I was and whatever. I'm very proud of being 29 and reached where I have. And I got promoted at the beginning of this year to director, which felt like the title I had been yearning for years. And so that was really crazy. And I was like looking around me being, really proud of that, where I've gotten so young. And then when he came to me with the board opportunity, I was like, a board member? Like, what does a board member do, And so that has been really awesome. And it's just been amazing to connect with the students, to help see the ins and outs of an organization. And I'm helping lead the development committee. So a lot of like the fundraising opportunities, and not shockingly, event planning, networking, all of those things. So it's really natural to where my skill set is, but it just gives me such a sense of purpose outside of just my day to day. And I'm loving every step of it.
That is absolutely amazing. And then also, again, tying into some of those themes early on that we chatted about that even got you here in marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, Sydney, we have talked about so much today. I feel like we've covered so much. It is absolutely so inspiring just to hear your career journey. And I really love you even bringing in that piece around your age of just feeling like I'm so proud of where I am. And I also feel a lot of imposter syndrome doing the things that I'm doing, because I think that's so relatable for so many women. And age is definitely a huge, I don't want to say obstacle sometimes, but I think especially if you are young and they tell you, well, you need, I remember I was always told, like, you shouldn't, like, why do you want more? Like, you're already so far ahead for your age. Like, you should be happy where you're at. But having that ambition, and I can see that within you, is so inspiring.
Definitely a fire there. I think the more people that told me, oh, you're young, wait your time, the more that I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong.
Which I love it. That chip on your shoulder, I feel like, is sometimes the most motivating thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Well, to wrap up today's episode, if you want to share one piece of advice you'd like to give the marketing girlies.
I think that there's been a clear through line here of relationship building, and that is the number one piece of advice I always give. I think it's focus on your network. And I don't mean networking in the way they teach you in school. It doesn't just mean cold outreach on LinkedIn or sending messages on social media. It's about really developing relationships along the way. And that doesn't just mean people above you, but the people next to you. I was talking to my Sky Society girlies about this, but you have no idea the other interns in your class, or the other people you're working with at the clothing store, or the other people that you're waitressing with, where they're going to be. Develop those relationships, support each other, and help be the person that mentions their name in another room, right? Help them give opportunities, and vice versa. And you will be so amazed at how your network expands and explodes. And I think even that's something that I do every day too. I take meetings that I know this partnership's not going to come to life, but I'm still going to take the meeting and I'm going to build the relationship, because you seriously never know. Yeah. And that would be my number one piece.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Marketing Girly, Sydney.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun.